Hey everybody. It's good to see you again, or at least imagine that I am seeing you again. It's been over a month since my last video, and I must admit the last month has vanished. It has disappeared off the face of the earth, and I have no idea what happened to it. All I know is the world has been in utter chaos during the last month, and things seem to have fallen off the deep end. A few weeks ago, I was reminded of a verse by the Lord that I knew was relevant to our time in our nation, but as well as relevant to this little mini series that we've been in our Bible study. The little series where we focus on the difference between our perception of reality versus God's kingdom reality, the way things seem to be versus the way things actually are. And today, I want to continue by discussing this one short Bible verse that the Lord brought to mind a few weeks ago. And it's a very common one in our culture. In fact, even if you're not a Christian, you've almost certainly heard this proverb, which is most famous in its King James formulation. So that's the way we're going to discuss it today. It's actually Proverbs 29:18. Proverbs 29:18, and it says this: "Without vision, the people perish, but he who keeps the law, happy is he." Without vision, the people perish. So a quick Google search of this verse will bring up many an inspirational sermon and blog post or teaching. I found a sermon online in which the minister was talking about how the church needed a vision in order to be a positive impact in their community. And so they all needed to come together and collectively imagine what they aimed to be so that they could have a positive impact in their world. The minister cited this particular verse as a proof text for that idea. On another page, I read an article that wasn't Christian in nature at all, but it cited this verse and talked about the fact that this verse even applied to such a thing as bodybuilding. Okay? About how you have to envision the body that you want to have, or that body that exists only in your mind will perish. And you'll never see the fulfillment of all of your training, no matter how many hours you put in at the gym. And literally, he cites this: without vision, the people perish. I also found an entire PowerPoint presentation slide pack, which was clearly created for the use in some sort of small group leader training or weekend seminar at a church. And it was some sort of seminar designed to motivate small group leaders to cast their visions for their groups and create a cohesive and focused and effective small group ministry. So they said, without vision, your small group will perish, or at least it won't come to fruition. Over and over again, I read this. Without vision, the people perish. And of course, this is true. I mean, it makes sense, right? In English, at least. And I also know it's true because we do find it in the Word of God. But the problem is, we have used this verse for our own ends. In our own context, in our own language, we have squeezed it into a mold that fits what we would rather hear than what Solomon was actually saying when he wrote this. We have applied this phrase, without vision the people perish, to our own goals for our own envisioned futures. Now, I don't know if you remember, but in The Princess Bride, that wonderful, wonderful old movie, Vizzini repeatedly exclaims, "Inconceivable!" To which Inigo Montoya famously replies, "You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means." And if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, please pause this video immediately and go watch The Princess Bride. Pay for it if you have to. We could all use a little comedy right now. Am I right? Now, assuming you do know the reference, I do not think Proverbs 29:18 means what we think it means. In fact, I know that our culture has gotten this one completely wrong. Okay? So let's take another look, shall we? Now, in order to understand what Solomon was actually talking about, we need to define two things. Okay? We need to know, one, what does Solomon mean by the word vision in that sense? And also, number two, what does he mean by the word perish? So we'll start with the first part. What does the word vision mean in the original language, in the original context? Well, the word used in this verse for the word vision is kazon. Kazon. And the definition of kazon is, quote, a divine communication in a vision or prophecy. Okay? It's used to describe the visions of Isaiah and Hosea. It's used to describe the visions of Habakkuk and almost all the other Old Testament prophets. And it's also used to describe prophetic dreams that come in the night, like the kind that Daniel had. So it can mean a vision, as in something seen in an ecstatic state, or a dream, or a prophecy that comes to a person. But it always means the kind of vision that comes to someone who is hearing from and or speaking for God. What it does not mean, ever, is one's hopes and dreams for their own imagined futures. It does not mean vision casting in the motivational poster sense of the word. It always describes God's vision, not our own. So that's the very first thing we need to know in order to understand this verse. And the second part is the idea of perishing. Perishing. What does Solomon mean when he says that without vision we will perish? Now this one's a little strange, okay, based on our English speaking understanding of things. Because the word that Solomon uses here is para. Para. And it literally means to cast off restraint. In fact, the Hebrew term paints a picture of a woman with hair that has come unbound. It's uncovered hair. So, without vision, the people will be like a woman with uncovered hair. What on earth is Solomon trying to say there? Well, and you know that I love you because I'm about to do this for you, Solomon is saying that without a prophetic vision from God, you could end up like this. You ready? Do you see this? Do you see this? This is what the word perish in that verse means. As crazy as that sounds, as crazy as that looks, nobody wants to be like this, though, right? My hair has come undone. It's wild, it's directionless, it's going every single which way. Without vision, Solomon says, you are like this. Okay? Do you get the image? I know this is ridiculous, but I'm telling you, this is what that Hebrew word means. It means to come undone like a woman's unbound, uncovered hair. Okay? So enough of that. I'm going to put this all away for the sake of all of us and to save myself any further embarrassment. But I just wanted you to see the image that the ancient Hebrew would have seen in their mind's eye when reading this scripture. Because that really is what the term that Solomon used meant. But even though it literally meant a woman's uncovered or unbound hair to come undone, more likely what the reader during Solomon's day would have understood was what Moses saw to his great dismay when he came down from Mount Sinai and discovered that Aaron had led the Israelites to build that golden calf. Okay? Exodus 32:25 says, Moses saw that the people were running wild and that Aaron had let them get out of control and so become a laughingstock to their enemies. 2 times in that verse, this word for perish or come undone is used. 2 times, the words running wild and the words out of control both use that word. And Exodus is describing how the Israelites were behaving. The word that the word that is used in Exodus to describe how the Israelites were behaving wild and free and unbound and in chaos around that golden calf is the same word that Solomon used when he wrote that without vision, the people perish. So what Solomon is saying is that without vision, the people run wild. Without vision, the people become undone. Without vision, they are without restraint. They are like my crazy, unbound hair, blowing every single which way, unguided and without direction. So with this understanding, it makes sense, doesn't it, that what Solomon was actually saying was that without God's prophetic vision, without God's perspective and direction, the people will run wild and aimless and be out of control. So that's why the second half of the verse, the part that says, but he who keeps the law, happy is he. See, that doesn't make any sense, does it? If the verse means that without, vision casting your future, we're going to perish. But he who keeps the law, happy is he. I mean, those two things have nothing to do with each other. But if it means, as Solomon intended, that without God's vision, we run wild, undone, and out of control, but if we keep God's law, then and if we are kept under control by God's law, by God's vision for our lives, then we shall be happy. You see, this verse is not about envisioning the future that we want for ourselves. It's about submitting ourselves to the vision that God has laid out for us in his precious law. If we as a nation understood the need to submit ourselves to God's righteous law, if we would just follow Jesus, who is the way and the very fulfillment of the law and all the prophets, then our cities wouldn't be burning and boiling over in protest and hatred and chaos. If we would seek God's vision for our nation rather than our own vision of the future that we think we desire, then we would actually be happy. Oh, that we will heed the prophets and submit our lives to God's vision for his kingdom. As it stands, I'm afraid we look more like wild Israelites dancing around a newly cast golden calf. I'm asking you this week and in the weeks to come to pray for your nation. I'm asking you to pray for God to give you his vision. You don't need your vision for your life. You need God's. We don't need to make America in our image. We need to make America in the image and likeness of his kingdom. I pray that this week you will stay in the Word so that you might know what God's vision for your life is. I pray this week that you would stay connected to the one who knows your future. Stay connected to the one who has great plans for your life. I love you all, and I miss you terribly. And I pray that you're doing well during this time of great chaos. God bless you, and I can't wait to see you again. Bye, guys.